Hi, I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is Sam IT. Welcome back to the channel after a bit of a hiatus. Today we're going to talk about why small businesses need to listen to MSP advice. Alright, so you're a small business and you almost certainly are working with an MSP of some sort because you pretty much have to. In this market, there's simply not enough volume in a small business to be able to have an entire IT department of your own. You may have a partial IT department, you may have none internally, it may be completely dependent on MSP, maybe partially dependent on MSP, but chances are you have an MSP somewhere in your IT ecosystem. That company is critical to you for providing advice. This is your IT advisor. They're part of your business decision-making infrastructure. I want to make some comparisons. If you were in more normal life to go to, say, a doctor, you would want to go to your doctor and listen very carefully to your doctor's advice. That's what you're paying them for primarily. Yes, you may be needing them to write a prescription, you may be needing them to perform a surgery, but the primary thing that a doctor is providing to you for your healthcare is advice. They're going to do diagnostics, they're going to listen to your needs, they're going to decide a course of treatment or action. In a more business or even personal scenario, your lawyer is a person, your attorney is someone you're going to go to for legal advice, right? You're paying them to be experts, and the value that they're providing, sure, they may write up a contract for you, they may write up a will, but those are things that you could get done without a lawyer. It's the advice around those things, the verifications, the guidance. That's primarily what you're paying for. That's where their real value comes in. The same thing happens in IT. Anybody can plug in a computer, anybody can install Windows, more or less. These things are pretty easy, but the thing that you need in a business is advice, and the last thing you would do is go to your doctor but not listen to the doctor and just listen to someone in the waiting room. You would never go to the lawyer and say, well, I hired this legal firm, but I'm just going to have the paralegals do all the actual work. I'm not going to use the lawyer. And you shouldn't go to IT and ignore the guidance that your MSP is providing. Now, of course, it goes without saying, there are bad MSPs out there, just like there are bad internal staff. You can get a bad lawyer, a bad doctor, a bad MSP. Bad people are out there in every field. The majority isn't very good. It's the law of averages. 50% of any field has to be below average, and average generally isn't very good. So be aware, you always have to seek excellence, just like you have to do with your own staff. When you're hiring, you need to do with an MSP when you're selecting them, just like you have to do with a doctor, a lawyer, your HR representative, your CFO, whoever, right? All of those pieces need to be evaluated, and you need to find someone or a company that is good and doing a good job. But once you have that relationship, your MSP's guidance is absolutely critical. They are part of your team. They're the most important part of your team when it comes to your core business infrastructure. This is the only team who has supposedly, right, the experience to look at your business and understand its needs, and to look at what's available and being done on the market, and look to the future, both of your business and to technology, and say, what does the future hold? What are we looking at? How are we going to address this? What is our roadmap for the business? There's a couple different reasons that this is really important that your MSP be doing this. And of course I say MSP. If you have a completely internal IT department and don't need an MSP, treat this as you need to listen to them, right? But small businesses can't realistically have big internal IT departments that cover the basis. They have to have an MSP. That's where MSPs come in for the SMB, right? They fill those gaps, including the guidance gap, right? Generally, that's where you're going to be able to get that. They are the only position that you will ever talk to where they have a full holistic picture of what needs to be done. They're looking at your business hopefully holistically, looking at the whole business, looking at all of your needs, right? They're considering your budget, they're considering your risk, they're considering your adversity, your owner or CEO desires, right? There's a whole bunch of things that are not always set in stone, and it's, oh, this company is risk averse, not legally, just because the owners or the investors are risk averse, or maybe they're very aggressive investors and they want to take a lot of risks and potentially get much bigger payoffs. Those are all things that your MSP, your IT department, needs to be considering for you. They also have the long-term roadmap, right? They're looking at those things, and they're also then playing into long-term strategies. They know what you have today, they know where you need to get to tomorrow, and they're putting all that together and thinking about that. One of the risks that MSPs take, SMBs, small businesses, take on all the time is they will start getting advice from lots of different places. They'll turn to their MSP, they'll listen to some things, they'll go meet their nephew that they heard is studying computers, they'll hear some things that they have to say, they'll go talk to someone at the bar, they'll talk to some other company and see what they're doing. And those things are fine. Gathering information, go back to your MSP and say, hey, I heard about these things. Just be aware if you start doing the I heard about some things. It's like going to your car mechanic and being like, oh, I heard about carburetors. Do you think we should put one in the car? If you needed one, if they were any good, they would know if you needed a carburetor, and randomly bringing up technology is not going to be useful, and kind of makes it look like you don't trust them, combined with not really giving them the openness to do their jobs. You have to temper that, right? But it's okay to come up with, I've seen some other companies doing these things. Is that something we should throw into the mix to look at, right? But the risk is that, and many companies do this, they start getting advice from lots of different places, and they start bringing them in, and they forget to have their MSP be in charge of a holistic view of the company. And you start getting fracturing, you start getting mistakes in your planning. Sure, this company over here said, oh, all you have to do is do this thing, and you'll be all set. And you take a piece of their advice. And your MSP says, well, we're going to do this thing. And when you put it all together, you take all these different pieces, nobody's overlooking the whole. It's important to realize when you do this, you're taking on the role of being the CIO. All decisions, once you start not having someone in charge of all that, you're in charge of it, and all the problems are yours. Your decisions are the ones that put the company at risk. The integration across there, it may be that this company suggested one technology, this one assumed another thing because of the roadmap, and when they didn't match, maybe you no longer have backups. Maybe you can't restore your environment. We see this all the time. This is a great example. There are certain types of applications that cannot be backed up using normal backup software, at least without certain accommodations for them. Of course, you can always take a backup, but you have to know what you're doing. Someone may go to their MSP, get that software, and that MSP is all prepared to help them with backups. But then that small business says, well, I have this friend, or I have this vendor, or I have this connection, or whatever, and I want to go work with them, not my MSP, for whatever reason. They go talk to a backup vendor, whether directly or through somebody, and the vendor says, yeah, we'll back up your whole system. Of course, they don't have working backups. They don't know what you're running. They don't know what questions to ask, because you're not the right party. You're responsible in that case for telling them you have software that cannot be backed up by a third party. It doesn't matter what they tell you. You're responsible for knowing that it's impossible for them to back it up. You should know because you're taking on the role of the CIO. Had you let your MSP do it, the MSP would be responsible for having put in software, knowing how to get it backed up, and making sure that it is getting backed up, as an example case. This is a specific one that we see all the time, this fracturing. No one's listening to the same party all throughout, and nobody has the complete picture, and makes it very risky that someone's going to step in, throw in some advice, and the things won't match together. But very often, like in the case of backups, you don't realize how bad things are until disaster strikes. You won't realize that your backups don't work until you need to use them. And if your MSP is not the one you put in charge of your backups, there's probably no one in charge of testing your backups. That's where we start running into cascades of problems. Suddenly you may be in extreme amounts of risk and have nobody overseeing it except for yourself, and you often, as an owner or a CEO or an investor, may have forgotten that you've taken on that role of responsibility and aren't paying any attention to it because you think, well, I have an MSP for that stuff. And they're thinking, I'm not in charge, we're only doing what we're told. They've taken on this role and they're selecting the products and the design and making the decisions. Your MSP is uniquely positioned to understand both in where they sit within your organization and in the skill set that they bring to the organization. This is their job, to put all these pieces together, to look at your needs, to make sure that things are getting done that make sense for your business. There's nobody else that's going to be able to do that in that way. Maybe another MSP, but not another role. Your financial person can't be the one doing that. Someone in your operations can't be the one doing that. Now, of course, if you have one person who wears all the hats and they have all the skill sets and all the free time to do these things, okay. But somebody has to be dedicated who understands all those pieces and does this. And this is where MSPs bring up their value to the organization. If you didn't need that, you could find other ways to cheaply put computers on desks and buy whatever's just the most expensive advertised thing, and it would be super easy. It wouldn't work well, it would cost you a fortune, it wouldn't specifically meet your needs, but it would work, right, as people use the term. So we normally recognize the need for this expertise. We recognize it in other fields. Those fields recognize it, right? A doctor is going to very quickly explain to you why you need to listen to your doctor, why a random person off the street is not going to be able to give you the right kind of advice, and why simply diagnosing yourself is dangerous. We might get it right, but you might get it really horribly wrong, and you may miss something, or you may, go just down a rabbit hole, as people do, right? And now, I said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it. MSPs are like anyone else. You can get really bad ones, so watch out, pay attention, evaluate. But as long as you trust your MSP, you need to keep trusting your MSP. If you're in a position where you don't trust them, you need to be replacing them, because somebody has to be in the driver's seat. So one of the key things in a small business is selecting a good MSP, maintaining a good relationship, and giving them the power and the knowledge, right, that they're in that position of power to drive your organization in a healthy way. A good MSP is going to be your ultimate partner in building your business. They may not be the one that comes up with the innovation that creates your new business line. They may not be the one that runs out and pops out widgets when things get slow, but they're the ones who are going to do all the stuff behind the scenes, all the things you don't want to think about, all the things you don't want to waste your time on, all the things that are critical to your business functioning, but are not the business itself. They're the glue that brings your organization together. And if you don't put that glue in, if you don't let the glue do its job, things are going to fall apart. And so listening to your MSP, trusting your MSP, relying on your MSP, making them a partner, not making them an outsider, is absolutely critical to the health of your organization. Thanks for joining me. I'm super excited to be back and doing the Sam IT channel. We are working on kind of this new studio setup. I know it's not much of a studio, but we've been gone for several months. It's been kind of a crazy year, which I can't really go into, but trust me, we've had great growth in our membership. I've got a lot of great ideas. We have tons of episodes being queued up and getting ready to go. And I am absolutely super excited to be back and making these videos again. And 2019 is going to be a great year for Sam IT. I'm so glad you're back with us and joining us, and I'm looking forward to what we can do throughout the year. Remember to like and subscribe, and as always, you can pop onto Patreon to support us directly. And if you were looking for an MSP, I have to mention this. I work for Niagara Technology Group, NTG, out of Dallas, Texas, and we do work throughout the United States and around the world. We are bilingual, and we help small businesses achieve their technology and business goals.